I swear, I only went to that concert because my best friend forced me. If I'd known I was about to become a tabloid headline, I would have stayed home watching Netflix in my dorm room, eating cereal straight from the box like a civilized introvert. But life doesn't warn you before it decides to make you the main character of someone else's love song. The night started like any other summer night in Los Angeles, hot, loud, alive. The open-air stadium was packed with fans screaming the name Aiden Cross, as if chanting for a god. And to be fair, Aiden was kind of a god not just in looks, but in the way he made you feel like his voice was touching something inside you that no one else could reach. I wasn't even a fan. I only knew one of his songs, the one that played at every Starbucks during finals week. But standing there, surrounded by people crying and shouting, I started to understand the hype. His presence was electric. When he sang, it wasn't just music, it was confession, raw and vulnerable. And then, in the middle of his final song, it happened. The lights dimmed, the music softened, and Aiden's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sometimes," he said, eyes scanning the crowd, "you don't choose who finds you, they just do." His gaze stopped. On me. I froze, the air thick in my lungs. And before I could blink, before I could even breathe, Aiden Cross, global pop sensation, Grammy winner, heartthrob of millions, reached out a hand toward me and said into the microphone, "Come here." The world erupted in screams. I don't remember climbing up. I think security helped, or maybe I just floated there, weightless in disbelief. The crowd blurred into a storm of light. My knees shook. My heart felt like it was about to combust. He smiled, the kind of smile that makes you forget your name, and leaned in, close enough that I could smell the faint trace of his cologne, sharp and sweet. Then, without warning, he whispered right against my ear, low enough only I could hear, "From now on, you belong to me." It wasn't a request. It wasn't even flirtation. It was a declaration. And somehow I knew this wasn't part of the show. Later, people would say it was staged, that I was an actor, a PR stunt, that no way in hell Aiden Cross would single out some random guy from the crowd. But I knew the truth. The look in his eyes, that quiet storm, wasn't something you could fake. Backstage, things moved fast. I was ushered behind the curtains, through a maze of cables and flashing lights, until I found myself in Aiden's dressing room. He was sitting on a leather couch, towel around his neck, still catching his breath from the performance. He looked up when I entered, that same intensity in his eyes, like he could see right through me. "You okay?" he asked. I blinked. You just told millions of people I belong to you." He laughed softly. "Yeah, I did. Why?" He leaned back, gaze tracing my face like he was memorizing every detail. "Because I saw you, out there in the crowd. You weren't screaming, you weren't holding a phone, you were just watching, like you actually saw me. Not the lights, not the fame. Me." I didn't know what to say. My heart was doing somersaults, but my brain was lagging 10 steps behind. "I don't even know you," I finally said. "Then let's fix that," he replied. That's how it started. A whirlwind. I was supposed to go back to my dorm, finish my summer internship, and keep pretending I was fine with being invisible. But instead, I found myself in Aiden Cross's orbit, dinners in dimly lit restaurants, late-night phone calls that lasted until dawn, stolen moments behind tinted car windows. He was charming, funny, and infuriatingly confident. But beneath the charisma, there was something broken, a loneliness he masked with perfect smiles and loud laughter. And maybe that's why I stayed. Because even though we came from different worlds, him with his fame, me with my quiet anonymity, we were both lonely in our own ways. But love, especially in Hollywood, is never simple. The first time the paparazzi caught us was outside a diner in West Hollywood. I was laughing at something he said, something stupid about pineapple pizza, when the flashes exploded around us like gunfire. Aiden froze. I saw it, the flicker of panic behind his eyes before he plastered on that charming grin for the cameras. I stepped back, instinctively, but he caught my wrist. "Don't," he whispered. "Don't let go." And so I didn't. The next morning, my face was everywhere. "Mystery Man with Aiden Cross," screamed the headlines. "Is this the singer's secret boyfriend?" My phone blew up. Friends, family, strangers, everyone wanted a piece of the story. But the worst was the hate. The internet is ruthless. People dissected my photos, mocked my clothes, called me names that burned even through the screen. He's using Aiden. He's a nobody. Just another gold digger. I tried to laugh it off, but it cut deep. Aiden tried to protect me. He deleted his social media, avoided interviews, even canceled a few appearances. But that only made things worse. The rumors grew twisted. And one night, when I told him maybe we should slow down, maybe this wasn't worth it, he looked at me like I'd just broken something sacred. "Do you think I care what they say?" he said, voice shaking. "Do you think I'd risk everything for something that doesn't matter?" Tears stung my eyes. "You're risking your career, Aiden. For me." He stepped closer, cupping my face in his hands. "No, I'm fighting for us." But the world didn't make it easy. When his record label found out, they demanded he clarify things. That he call me a friend. That he let the rumors die. I remember the night he came to my apartment, eyes red from holding back tears. He didn't say anything at first. Just sat on my couch, staring at the floor. "I have to make a statement tomorrow," he finally whispered. I nodded slowly. "And you're going to deny it?" He closed his eyes. "It's just for now," he said. "Until the next album drops, until things calm down. Then we can—" "Then what, Aiden?" My voice cracked. "Pretend it never happened? Pretend I never existed?" He looked up, pain etched into every line of his face. "You think this is easy for me?" I swallowed hard, trying to hold myself together. "You're asking me to go back to being invisible." He reached for me, but I stepped away. "You said I belonged to you," I whispered. "But you belong to them." That night he left, and for the first time in my life, silence felt heavier than noise. The days after Aiden left felt like living inside an echo chamber. Everything reminded me of him: the smell of coffee he always made too sweet, the playlist he left running on my laptop, even the stupid denim jacket he forgot draped over my chair. The news wouldn't shut up about it either. Sources close to Aiden Cross confirm he's single. Aiden's rumored romance with Mystery Man ends abruptly. And my personal favorite, publicity stunt gone wrong? I stopped going online. I stopped talking to my friends. I stopped feeling much of anything. Because when someone like Aiden Cross walks into your life, he doesn't just take up space, he rearranges your world. And when he leaves, you're left wondering how to breathe in the ruins. But time, as cruel as it is, keeps moving. 3 months passed. I went back to my classes, pretended everything was fine, and tried not to flinch every time one of his songs came on in a cafe or grocery store. Until one afternoon, while scrolling through my emails, I saw it. From Cross Management PR subject, invitation to Aiden Cross charity concert private guest list. I almost deleted it. My heart screamed, "Don't do this again." But my fingers disobeyed. I clicked it open. The message was short. Aiden Cross will be performing an exclusive acoustic show in San Francisco this weekend. He personally requested that you receive this invitation. Transportation and accommodations are arranged if you choose to attend. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I whispered to myself, "No, you idiot. Don't." But the next morning, I was on a train heading north. San Francisco greeted me with fog and cold wind, the kind that cuts through your jacket and reminds you you're alive, even when you wish you weren't. The event was held in a small theater overlooking the bay. It wasn't a flashy concert. No screaming crowds, no strobe lights, just a few hundred seats, soft acoustic lighting, and a single microphone on stage. When I walked in, one of Aiden's assistants recognized me immediately. "You came," she said with a small smile. "He'll be glad." "I'm not sure why I came," I muttered. But deep down, I knew exactly why. The lights dimmed, and the crowd quieted. Then there he was, Aiden Cross, dressed simply in black, guitar slung over his shoulder, hair a little longer, eyes softer. He looked older somehow, not in years but in the way heartbreak matures you. He strummed the first few chords, his voice filling the room like smoke, warm, heavy, inescapable. "This song," he said, glancing up, is for someone who taught me that love doesn't always need an audience. I froze. The lyrics were new, raw, stripped down. They weren't about fame or success. They were about us. About nights spent talking until sunrise, about fear and love and losing both. And when he sang the last line, "If I could do it again, I'd choose you, even if it cost me everything," I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears blurred my vision. After the show, I tried to leave quietly, but his assistant caught me. "He wants to see you," she said. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Backstage, it was quieter than I remembered. Aiden was sitting alone, guitar resting against his leg, staring at the floor like he was afraid to look up. When he finally did, it was like the months apart disappeared. The ache in his eyes mirrored mine. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." We stood there for a long moment, awkward, suspended between what we were and what we lost. He took a deep breath. "You look good." "Liar," I said. "I look like someone who hasn't slept properly since June." That made him smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I deserved that. I crossed my arms, unsure how to stand, how to speak. "Why'd you invite me?" "Because I needed to see you," he said simply. "Because I can't keep pretending that what happened didn't matter." I shook my head. "You made it pretty clear it didn't." He stood then, closing the distance between us. "That's not true. You have no idea how hard it was for me to walk away." "Then why did you?" "Because they made me choose," he said, voice trembling. "Between you and everything I've worked for my whole life. And I was too scared to lose it all." The silence that followed felt heavier than words. I whispered, "And now?" He looked at me, really looked like he was seeing me for the first time again. "Now I'm not scared anymore." We didn't jump into each other's arms. We didn't kiss dramatically under the lights. It wasn't like that. Instead, we talked, for hours, about what it was like to be torn apart by something as stupid as public opinion. About what it meant to love someone when the whole world told you not to. About fear, his of losing his career, mine of losing myself in him. And somewhere between the confessions and the laughter, the tension began to melt away. When he reached out this time, I didn't pull back. "I'm done hiding," he said quietly. "If the world wants to hate me for loving someone, let them. I just want to be honest." I searched his eyes. "You mean that?" He nodded. "I do. My next album, it's called Unscripted. Every song's about you." I didn't even ask the label. I just did it. I blinked. "Aiden, that could ruin you." He smiled, and for the first time in months it was real. "Maybe, but at least I'll go down singing the truth." We spent the rest of that night walking through the quiet streets near the pier. No disguises, no bodyguards. Just us. It felt surreal after everything. After the storm, to finally breathe the same air without fear. At one point he stopped, looking out at the dark waves hitting the rocks. "You know, I used to think fame was freedom," he said. "But I've never felt more trapped than when I couldn't hold your hand in public." I took his hand gently. "Then maybe it's time you learn what real freedom feels like." He squeezed back, tears glinting in the soft streetlight. "With you, it already does." The announcement came 2 weeks later. Aiden posted a simple photo on his social media, the two of us sitting on that same pier, hand in hand. No captions, no filters, no PR polish. The internet lost its mind. Half the comments were love and support. The other half, well, humanity still had a long way to go. But Aiden didn't back down. He gave interviews, talked about equality, about love, about authenticity. He refused to let the industry silence him again. And slowly, something amazing happened. People started listening. His new album, Unscripted, broke records. Critics called it the rawest, most honest work of his career. Fans connected to it not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. And me? I stayed mostly out of the spotlight, finishing school, working on my photography. But sometimes, when I saw his face on a magazine cover or heard his voice on the radio, I smiled not because he was famous, but because I knew the man behind the music. A few months later, during one of his smaller shows in Chicago, he did it again. Halfway through a song, he stopped, smiled at the audience, and said, "I want to bring someone special up here tonight." The crowd screamed, expecting another lucky fan. But when his eyes found me, my heart nearly stopped. "Oh no," I muttered, already shaking my head. Too late. He extended his hand, that same mischievous glint in his eyes. "Come here." The crowd went wild. Deja vu hit me hard as I walked up, the lights washing over me. My pulse raced, but this time it wasn't fear, it was joy. When I reached him, he leaned close, just like that first night, and whispered, "Still mine." I grinned. "Always." He turned to the microphone, voice soft but steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it looks like when you stop being afraid of love." The audience erupted in cheers. I felt his hand tighten around mine, and for the first time, I realized we weren't fighting anymore. We were living. That night, after the show, we sat in the empty stadium, the echoes of applause still lingering in the air. "You remember the first time you said that?" I asked. "You belong to me?" He chuckled. "Yeah, not my smoothest line." "It was kind of terrifying," I admitted, laughing. "You sounded like a movie villain." He laughed too, then grew quiet. "I meant it differently back then. It was possessive, scared. Like I was trying to hold onto something I didn't deserve. And now," he brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Now I know love doesn't mean owning someone. It means choosing them over and over, every single day." I leaned in, resting my forehead against his. "Then choose me again tomorrow." "I will," he whispered. "Every tomorrow I get." The stars above us seemed to hum with the city lights, the night alive with promise. In the months that followed, the noise of the world faded into the background. We learned to exist in the in-between, the spaces where fame meets normal life, where chaos meets calm. Sometimes we fought. Sometimes we laughed until sunrise. But always we found our way back. Love, I learned, isn't about the big moments, the headlines, the stage lights, the grand gestures. It's about the quiet ones. The mornings when he'd hum in the kitchen while making coffee. The nights when he'd fall asleep mid-sentence, his hand still in mine. The peace that comes from knowing finally that you're seen, truly seen, and still loved anyway. People still ask how it all started, and I never know how to answer. Do I tell them it began when he pulled me on stage, or when he whispered that I belonged to him? Or do I tell them the truth that it began long before that? The moment I looked up at him under those stage lights and saw not a star, but a man aching to be known. Whatever it was, it changed everything. And if I could go back to that night, that impossible, reckless, beautiful night, I'd do it all over again. Because love, when it's real, doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. Loud, messy, terrifying, and absolutely worth it. 6 months later, Aiden was standing on the stage of the biggest night in music, the Grammys. The same lights that once blinded him now seemed softer, almost forgiving. The crowd roared as his name was announced. Winner of Album of the Year, Unscripted by Aiden Cross. I watched from the audience, heart pounding, tears already stinging the back of my eyes. He walked up to the podium, dressed in a sleek black suit, every step confident but grounded. When he reached the mic, he didn't look at the trophy. He looked out, scanning the endless sea of faces until his gaze found mine. And then he smiled. "This award," he began, his voice steady but trembling with emotion, "isn't just for me. It's for the people who told their stories even when no one wanted to hear them. For the kids who grew up thinking they had to hide who they loved. For anyone who's ever been told that love makes them weak." He paused, glancing down for a second, gathering himself. "When I started writing Unscripted, I thought it would ruin me. I thought telling the truth would end my career. But it didn't. It saved me. Because I finally stopped pretending." A hush fell over the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. I could see his eyes glistening under the lights. He smiled again, softer this time. "And to the person who taught me what honesty really means, you know who you are. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. The applause that followed wasn't thunderous, it was gentle, warm, like a collective sigh of acceptance. And for the first time, Aiden Cross wasn't performing. He was free. After the ceremony, the after-party was chaos. Champagne, flashing lights, famous faces everywhere. But Aiden slipped out quietly, like he always did when it got too loud. I found him outside on the balcony, away from the noise, leaning against the railing. The city stretched below us, 1,000 golden lights flickering like fireflies. He turned when he heard me. Hey, Grammy winner, I teased, walking over. He grinned. Feels weird hearing that. Feels right to me, I said, taking his hand. You earned it. He looked down at our intertwined fingers, his smile fading into something more thoughtful. You know what's funny? All those years chasing perfection, chasing hits, and it turns out the thing that finally got me here was just being honest. I nodded. The truth has a way of catching up to you. In your case, it came with a platinum record. He laughed quietly. Then, after a moment, he said, I was scared you wouldn't come tonight. I almost didn't, I admitted. Crowds, cameras. All of it still freaks me out. He squeezed my hand. I get it, but I'm glad you did. We stood there in silence, the cool breeze brushing against our faces. The city felt alive, but for once, it wasn't overwhelming. It just felt right. Later that night, back at the hotel, Aiden tossed the Grammy onto the bed like it was nothing more than a paperweight. Careful, I said, laughing. That's worth at least 100,000 bragging rights. He flopped down beside it. It's just a trophy. You're the real win. I rolled my eyes. Cheesy. He grinned. Yeah, but true. Then he reached over, pulled me close, and rested his forehead against mine. You remember what you said that night in Chicago? He whispered. About choosing each other again tomorrow? I nodded. Yeah. He smiled. I still am. Every damn day. And just like that, the noise of the world faded again, the fame, the pressure, the fear. None of it mattered. Because here, in this quiet hotel room, it wasn't about a singer and his secret love story anymore. It was just two people who found home in each other. The next morning, sunlight poured through the window, painting the room gold. Aiden was still asleep beside me, his hand draped over my chest, breathing slow and peaceful. I took a picture not for the world, not for social media, but for me. A quiet reminder that love, in its simplest form, is just this. Someone choosing to stay. I thought about everything we'd been through, the fear, the pain, the endless noise of judgment, and how, somehow, we survived it. Not by being perfect, but by being real. Aiden stirred, eyes blinking open. You're staring, he mumbled, voice rough with sleep. Can you blame me? I said, smiling. He groaned playfully. Ugh, you're worse than the tabloids. I laughed. They don't get to see this side of you. He pulled me closer, voice low and warm. That's because it's only yours. And in that moment, I realized love doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the quietest moments hold the most truth. Months later, when Aiden's world tour began, I went with him not as a secret, not as a rumor, but as part of his life. Some nights, I'd watch from the wings as he sang under 1,000 lights, pouring his heart into every word. And sometimes, when he reached the last song hours, he'd glance at me and smile, that same smile that changed everything. One evening in New York, as the crowd sang along, I caught his gaze. For a second, it felt like the first night all over again, the stage, the lights, the promise. But this time there was no fear, no pretending, no hiding, just love, loud, unapologetic, and real. After the final show of the tour, we took a drive along the coast. The ocean shimmered beside us, moonlight breaking over the waves. Aiden rolled down the window, letting the wind mess up his hair. You know, he said, if someone told me a year ago that I'd end up here out, happy, alive, I'd have laughed in their face. And now? I asked. He smiled. Now I can't imagine it any other way. He reached over, lacing his fingers through mine. The road stretched ahead, endless and open. You ever think about what comes next? I asked. He shrugged. Who cares? Whatever it is, we'll face it together. The simplicity of it made my chest tighten. Because that was the truth. There was no grand plan, no script. Just two people choosing each other one day at a time. The car hummed softly. The ocean sang beside us, And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt weightless. Maybe love isn't about fairy tales or perfect endings. Maybe it's just about finding someone who looks at you and says, I see you, and I'm not going anywhere. That's what Aiden did. That's what we became. And if anyone ever asks me how it feels to love a man the whole world tried to take from me, I'll tell them this. It felt like standing under 1,000 lights, hearing him whisper, from now on, you belong to me. And for once, knowing he didn't mean ownership, he meant forever. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.